You've heard it 1,000 times. Go with the flow. Don't force things. Trust the Tao. Let life unfold. But here's what nobody tells you. What if the current is moving toward a cliff? That's when most people trained in Taoism freeze. They've learned so deeply that forcing is ego, that trying is resistance, that real wisdom means surrender. And then they find themselves in a situation where passivity isn't peace. It's complicity. It's cowardice wrapped in philosophy. The ancient masters understood something we've forgotten. Wu Wei doesn't mean never acting. It means knowing exactly when action becomes necessary and then striking with absolute precision. The Tao demands young energy at specific moments. And the people who master this, they're not aggressive or anxious. They're dangerously effective. What I'm about to show you is different because it's not about willpower or motivation. It's a diagnostic process, a way to read any situation and know with certainty whether you should act or wait. Most people fail here because they try to feel their way through. You're going to think your way through instead. Let me start with the first step. And this is crucial. You need to diagnose the energy state of the situation you're in. Situations exist in 3 states. First state, stagnant. Nothing is moving, there's potential, but no flow. A business project that's been sitting untouched for months. A relationship where nothing is being communicated. A goal you keep saying you'll start, but never do. In a stagnant state, the system is dead. It's not moving toward anything. It's just stuck. Second state, flowing. Energy is moving naturally. You can sense momentum. A conversation is happening, a project has rhythm, a relationship is evolving. When a situation is flowing, the Tao is present. The current exists. This is where most people confuse themselves. They think flowing means they should never intervene. But flowing is not the same as flowing in the right direction. Third state, collapsing. The energy is moving, but toward destruction. Your business is accelerating toward collapse. A relationship is in freefall. A decision that felt good 3 weeks ago is now clearly leading somewhere harmful. Collapse isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's subtle. A slow erosion that doesn't announce itself. Here's what most people miss. Young energy is only necessary in 2 of these states. In stagnation, sometimes you do need to initiate, but not always. Sometimes the wisest move is to wait for the system to naturally shift. But in collapse, that's where you're about to make the biggest mistake. Most people trained in Taoism see a collapsing situation and think, let it unfold, trust the process. That's not wisdom. That's surrender pretending to be philosophy. So that's step 1, diagnose the energy state, stagnant, flowing, or collapsing. Take 10 seconds right now and think about one situation in your life. Which state is it in? Step 2. And this is where most people freeze entirely. You need to identify your role in that system. Are you an observer, a participant, a leader? Your role determines whether action is even yours to take. If you're an observer, your job is clarity, seeing clearly. If you're a participant, your job is alignment, moving with the flow. If you're a leader, your job is something different entirely. You're responsible for the direction of the system itself. Here's where the confusion happens. Someone will witness a collapsing situation, a friend making a terrible decision, a team heading toward disaster, and they'll think, I need to act. But if you're only an observer, intervention is not your role. You can offer insight, but forcing change, that's you imposing your will instead of reading what the situation actually needs from you. But here's a problem. Most people severely underestimate their role. You think you're an observer when you're actually a participant. You think you're a participant when you're actually a leader. This misdiagnosis paralyzes you. Someone will watch their business decline and say, "I can't interfere, I have to let it be," when they're actually the person responsible for making decisions. Or the opposite, they'll try to change their partner's life when they're not in a leadership role at all. So step 2 is honest. What is your actual role here? Not what would feel good. What is your legitimate responsibility? Notice your breathing right now. Feel how it changes when you realize you've been acting outside your actual role for months. That's the insight moving through you. Step 3 is where everything comes together. You need to recognize the point of leverage. A point of leverage is where a small, precise action creates exponential shift. The Tao doesn't work through force, it works through leverage. A small stone in exactly the right place can redirect an entire river. A single conversation at the right moment can completely alter a relationship's trajectory. One decision made at the threshold changes everything that follows. Most people don't see the point of leverage. They see a massive problem and think they need massive action. So they start pushing and straining and forcing. That's not yang energy. That's just ego burning itself out. Real yang energy is surgical, precise. It's knowing that the dam doesn't need to be broken. It needs to be cracked at exactly one point. Then the pressure does the rest. The leverage point is almost always at a threshold moment. The moment when the situation is most sensitive to change. If you wait until everything is locked in, you'll need 10 times the force. But if you act at the threshold, a whisper becomes a wind. How do you find the leverage point? You ask yourself, what is the minimal action that would shift this entire system? Not what would feel satisfying, not what would prove you're right. What would actually move the needle with the least resistance? Sometimes it's a conversation, sometimes it's walking away, sometimes it's a single decision made visible. But it's always small, it's always precise, it's always at the point where the system is most open to change. Step 4 is the execution, and this is where most people who understand the first 3 steps still fail. You apply focused yang energy with 0 resistance. Then you release. This is critical. Focused yang means you commit completely. You're not tentative, you're not hedging. You act with full clarity and full commitment. But then you release. You don't cling to the outcome. You don't keep pushing, you strike, and then you step back and let the system respond. Here's what sabotages most people. They apply the action, but then they can't let go. They keep trying to control what happens next. They've initiated, but they haven't actually committed to the outcome. That's not yang, that's anxiety wearing yang's clothes. Real yang energy moves once, precisely, and then trusts. The arrow leaves the bow, the word is spoken, the decision is made. Now you wait, now you observe, now you let the system respond. Most people trained in philosophy skip this step entirely. They think that committing to action means they have to keep acting. That's exhausting, that's resistance. The Tao doesn't work that way. So here's where it all connects. You have a situation, you diagnose its energy state, stagnant, flowing, or collapsing. You identify your actual role, observer, participant, or leader. You find the point of leverage, the threshold moment where minimal action creates maximum shift. Then you act with full focus and full commitment. and then you release completely. If you skip any step, you fail. You diagnose wrong and act on a misreading. You act outside your role and create chaos. You miss the leverage point and exhaust yourself with force. You act but can't release, and you sabotage the outcome with your clinging. But if you move through all four, you become the person who knows when to act and when to wait. You become effective, not aggressive, not anxious, effective. This is what separates the wise warriors from the paralyzed philosophers. It's not that one acts and the other doesn't. It's that one understands the sequence. The ancient masters weren't passive, they were selective. They understood that true power comes from acting at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right way, with exactly the right amount of force, which is often almost none at all. You have that same capacity. You've just been waiting for permission to use it. Here it is. Start today. Pick one situation in your life where you've been frozen. Run it through the 4 steps. Diagnose the energy. Identify your role. Find the leverage point. Apply yang, then release. Watch what happens when you move with this precision instead of this anxiety. That's the difference between being trapped in philosophy and being liberated by it. If this helped, hit like, subscribe, and keep it simple. See you tomorrow.